Hello and good evening, everybody. My name is Zebulon Featherly. Thank you all for coming today. I'd like to first talk a little bit about the campaign event I had this past Friday. That was in Sault Ste. Marie. It was a fantastic event. Had a great time, and the moderator was very good. The setting was very good. It was very well put together, and I enjoyed it a lot. The other candidates that were there, which was Kyle, Justin, and Wayne, were very nice. Got to hang out with them a little bit afterwards, which was cool, and a lot of very good questions. It was very very rapid fire, and had a couple of questions that were bit more difficult to answer than the last one, but answered them as best I could, and I've gained many more things to research for myself, so all is good there. So the topic for today is going to be AI, and I've got a list of questions here. If anyone joins in and wants to type in the chat just your general feelings towards AI. It's a very new, very complex topic. So any questions you have in regards to understanding it, AI itself or data centers, both of those are very, very hot topics right now, and I'd love to have a deeper discussion about them. Basically, how I'll do this is as people respond in the comments, I'll react to that as I see them, and I'll kind of go over these questions myself in the order that I've prescribed them. But I'd love to hear some feedback from people in regards to these subjects. So if not, that's fine. I'm also just going to go through them myself, so no worries either way. Let's quickly do a quick run through of all the different questions I have. First one, like I said, it's just if you have any general questions about understanding what AI is, what data centers are, why we need them or don't need them. Then any concerns you have about artificial intelligence, concerns you have about data centers, how you think AI will change everyday jobs over the next 10 to 20 years. Could even be fewer years than that, but we'll see. How can we ensure that AI technology benefits everyday people and not just large corporations? I think that one's a really important one for me. But again, we'll get to it later on unless someone else brings it up earlier. Then we can talk about the risks. And I do think there are plenty of risks to keep in mind. And then we can talk about the opportunities as well. So, potential on both sides. Okay, so let's go ahead and start off with some general information on AI and data centers. So, I know locally data centers are coming up a lot in news simply because they're getting installed in locations where people were not aware that they were getting installed, and then they're affecting local infrastructure. I talked with a resident of Sault Ste. Marie when I was there past Friday, and he brought up concerns about a data center that had been installed very close to a school, and the data center is air cooled, so it doesn't use water to cool their servers. But since it's air cooled, it made it significantly louder to run because they have these big fans that are moving the air around, and it makes a lot of noise. He said somewhere around 80 decibels. I haven't looked into it enough to know how much or like how loud the typical air-cooled data center would be, but that's something to keep in mind for sure, because it's going, loud machinery, loud anything, it's going to affect the ecosystems. Living in Upper Michigan, Northern Michigan, I guess, the ecosystems are probably one of our biggest, in my eyes, one of our biggest assets is our environment. I love Michigan so much, and I would be really sad to see, the wildlife change simply because of something that we could have taken into account. But yeah, so they're kind of trying to get them to limit how much noise that building is generating. Hopefully they do well. But as for other concerns for data centers, I'll get to that a little bit more in a minute, but I want to talk a little bit more about AI itself. So AI is incredibly complex. One second, there's a comment, center across from the elementary school. This claims it was at 65 decibels at the front door of the elementary school. Can you look up to see what... I can't off the top of my head think of something to compare 65 decibels to. If you could look that up for me, that'd be amazing. But anyways, AI is very complex, and I feel like if I tried to explain it well, it probably wouldn't go great. So I'll butcher it, and anyone scientific can complain later. So to me, AI is basically early stages of machines being able to think and create. And it's still early stages, and it's still developing quite a lot, and it's developing quickly. Right now, it's very good at data management. So it's very good at handling numbers, it's very good at solving problems, it's very good at language, and it's getting significantly better and better at creating images, creating videos, creating new ideas. And I think that part is where it really comes into concern. And so I think, okay, 1 second. 65 decibels is considered between a normal conversation and background music. Okay, so it's audible, but that's from the front door of the elementary school. So that is constantly going to be able to be heard. Yeah, I want to say he said it was louder, but then they got it so that they reduced it at that specific location. So it's definitely something that you should definitely be thinking about when you're installing these things. 1 second. Okay. Concerns that I have about AI. I think I know a lot of people. Okay, 75 is landscaping equipment. That's significant. Number 2, a concern that I hear that AI biases their answers because are based on a questioner's apparent bias. So there is a potential for AI to be biased, but it's not the most likely that I've seen. It's going to depend a lot on the specific AI that you are using. Most of the larger ones right now are pretty good, I've found, about steering away from bias as best they can. However, you can, if you intentionally do so, you can create its own bias. And that is definitely something we should be looking at and something to be thinking about as we go forwards with this, experiment that we have. I do think that internal biases would be a big concern, though, because you don't want an AI to have, like a side in things. You don't want it to choose sides. You want it to be neutral. Because as soon as it chooses a side, then that's how conflicts get started. And we don't want that. One of the biggest concerns that I've heard from some of my friends is the concern of where AI is getting its data. Because AI is trained, it's basically training itself on information. So say it watches me play chess. It can take that information and learn from it. And the biggest concern that I've heard is that it's using other people's created content, artists especially. This is a big thing for any type of artist, whether it's physical art or language-based art. It can be songwriting, it can be photos, it can be anything. And people's concern is that there's no way to police how it's training its the model, and there's no way to control where it's getting its data from. And if it is using your creation to train itself, there's no way for you to get compensated for that either at this time. And that is one of the concerns. There's another big concern right now about AI creating false information. I see a comment. Let me just read this real quick. Makes me think of in 2017 when iPhone came out with their Face ID unlocking feature. There's a woman in China whose coworker could consistently open her phone. They were not related. Interesting. Yeah. No, I mean, sorry, I don't. Is that in reference to the previous question? Or just photo? I mean, I guess it would be an issue where if like it's a security issue, if an AI can recreate images of people. But that was actually kind of similar to what I was going to talk about next, is where people can use AI to create false images of people doing things, even videos of people doing things, and it's a even larger issue when it becomes people that are more publicly seen. Let's see, 1 second. When new machines are made, biases will be overlooked. That is why it is important to stay vigilant, stay aware of biases in new tech. Yeah, I mean, whenever you're creating new tech, you need to be on top of any potential issues that it's going to have. But in regards to even political campaigns, like what I'm doing right now, there's a significant threat in people being able to create false videos of, people running for office and putting them in illegal or compromising situations with a fake video. And I think that's been seen more and more lately, especially on social media. Those types of videos being shown and spread, and we need a way to basically signify that it is a video or photo created with an artificial intelligence. I think if we're to have any sort of security in that regard, that needs to happen. Let's talk about concerns of data centers. My biggest concerns are 4 major factors. One is the physical footprint. 2 is the energy they use. 3rd is the water that they use for cooling. And then 4th is the noise that they create. There might be other factors, but those are the main 4 that I think about. The first, their physical footprint, right? So that's anywhere from where are they getting installed? Are they getting put in a place where they'll have minimal impact on the environment? That's what I want to see, is potentially zoning or whatever needs to happen. Let's see, there's a question. Data centers would be most efficient built near population centers. Is that not a constraint? So, I don't believe data centers necessarily require or are more efficient when they're built near population centers. The biggest factor for them is to have access to a way of cooling, and then have access to basically data, a network, so a data network. And so it wouldn't necessarily have to be near a population center, because you can connect to the data grid, the web, the internet, from wherever you need to be. There's a chance that being near data or population centers would have the benefit of having that infrastructure already in place, and so you wouldn't have to build that type of data infrastructure, as well as the energy infrastructure that is required, because they require a lot of energy, and they're obviously transporting a lot of data. But other than those factors, being near population centers isn't necessarily as big of a constraint that I know of. If I'm incorrect, please correct me. But to my knowledge, that's not as big of a constraint as you might think it is. Anyways, back to my concerns about data centers. The second one is energy, right? We were talking about that a little bit, but what I really want to see is any new data center should not be impacting the current cost of energy in a region. So if a data center comes in and you're paying a specific amount for your energy, that data center needs to be responsible for any additional energy requirements and will have to pay any extra that is required to either ship in that energy or update or upgrade the grid so that the locals aren't getting burdened with that those changes. Let's see, and we have water usage. So a lot of data centers are going to be cooled through water or other types of coolant. Water is the most efficient for them and it's the most cost effective for them. And that's why it's used the most. And the biggest concern right now is our Great Lakes are a huge source of fresh water, but it's also a significant part of Michigan's culture and Michigan's beauty. And we are not okay with companies coming in and just using it however they want. And so we need to make sure that any data centers that are installed are not, they don't have free use of our Great Lakes, and we need policies in place to make sure that they are using our resources responsibly. What that looks like to me is a closed loop system. And what a closed loop system is basically a system where the water they have that is being used to cool their equipment is continuously reused and recycled within their own system. You never really add in more water. You don't take out water. It's just reusing the same water that they currently have. So they would obviously add some initially, but they wouldn't be continuously, there wouldn't be any concerns of pollution or affecting the surrounding ecosystem. Let's see. Is there anything else for cooling? Obviously, like that one that is in Sault Ste. Marie, that one was air cooled, and the air cooling through the air generates a lot of sound. Talked about this a little bit earlier, but that is another big issue that I would want to ensure we have strict policy, ensuring that the sound levels are not too high. I think that if you are like across the street and able to hear these fans running constantly, that's too loud. We should be aiming for minimal to no impact on surrounding communities and environments. Okay, that kind of goes over data centers. All right. Artificial intelligence and its effects on everyday jobs over the next 10 to 20 years. This is one where I do think it's going to have a lot of impact, and I don't think we're prepared, or I don't think we comprehend everything that's going to happen. Which makes sense, because it's impossible to truly know everything that's going to happen. I know there's a lot of politicians, and one of the people that kind of led the AI developments, there's a lot of predictions out there that is saying half of the jobs that currently exist are going to be taken over by AI in under 10 years. And just from seeing how robotics has changed robotics have changed like warehouses and factories and the assembly line, right? Those on their own have taken a lot of the physical factory jobs. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing, because that's not necessarily a job that I would want, and it's not necessarily a glorious job or anything, but there's still the fact that people used to work in those positions and now they have to work somewhere else. AI, however, has a much wider spread of what it can do. And I think what we'll see first is a lot of the management jobs, a lot of the office jobs, a lot of the call centers, and basically anything you can think of. There's a very good chance that AI can and will take over that position in the next 10 years. And that is a very intimidating idea, and I think that ignoring it is not going to make it go away, unfortunately. How I would love to see things happen within our government is I'd love to see them right now putting things in place that will create a safety net for us if this happens, right? Artificial intelligence is not slowing down. They're constantly improving their systems. They're constantly adding to their abilities. And so ignoring it is not going to solve any of these problems. And I think there are arguments that, it doesn't make sense to solve problems that don't exist yet, but I think it never hurts to have a solution available for if a problem comes up, right? We are preparing for the future. We are creating solutions for problems that could happen. And I think that's just being smart about our potential future. Let's see here. Are there any questions about or comments about artificial intelligence within the workplace? I'd love to hear about people's experiences if they've seen or used AI within the workplace. Because I know I've used it personally, but I haven't really used it within the workplace. Granted, I'm an electrician, and I see trade based jobs being some of the last ones that'll be getting replaced by robots or AI. I have seen a 3D printer that is building scale that is pretty interesting, but I think it'll be a little while before that fully takes off. If there's no comments, we can move on to my next question. How do we ensure that AI technology benefits everyday people and not just large corporations? So this is a tough one, right? If we end up with half the working people being unemployed in 10 years, how are everyday people gonna survive? And is that going to if that happens, it's just going to make the current wealth distribution issue an even larger issue. Right now we have the largest wealth gap that's ever existed. And if we don't do anything about it, if we don't create any solutions to this problem, it's only going to get worse. So what I would love to see is, again, we can create policies that take effect if certain things are triggered. So say, for instance, if unemployment rate gets above 10%, then maybe how I envision it is if unemployment gets above 10%, then unemployment benefits, our current system of paying people who are unemployed would get substantially buffed, in that you'd be able to survive and it'd be equal at least to a minimum wage job. I do, however, think our minimum wage is too low at the moment, so that wouldn't exactly work and would need to be tweaked a little bit. At certain points, I think we really need to take a look at wealth taxes, because and potentially a wealth cap, right? These are things that Bernie Sanders talks about a lot, and I think it's very important if we are to keep our economy sustainable. We're going to have make some hard choices, because as I see it, trickle-down economics has failed, right? It's never been for the working class. It's always been for billionaires, and it's always been up to them to choose to spread the wealth. And the fact that we have more billionaires and more concentrated wealth than ever before is clear evidence to me that that is not the case, and that trickle-down economics is a scam. So I think looking into a wealth cap and a wealth tax is going to be very beneficial. I would support both of those things, and especially if the AI taking regular people's jobs becomes as big of an issue as we suspect it might be. Let's move on to the next one. What are the biggest risks AI could pose to democracy, information, and public trust? So I briefly talked about this one a little bit earlier, but I think my biggest concerns and the biggest risks AI could pose is false images and false videos. We have the ability to create photos and videos of anything we want right now. And there's a significant concern about AI being used politically, creating videos that are false of your rival campaign, the people you're campaigning against, right? I see that as a major issue, and I think it needs to be addressed sooner rather than later. How I see that happening is anything that is created with AI needs a watermark on it saying that it is created through AI. So that goes for videos, it goes for photos. I'm not sure about text-based AI because, again, that can easily be manipulated. I'm not too sure where I stand on that. But photos and videos, especially, they need to have some sort of watermark, some sort of seal that says how they are created, and to make it easier for people to understand that these are not real images. Yeah, I think that's the best way to deal with the potential threat of false information. And yeah. Okay. Now, while AI is threatening and dangerous and very intimidating, it is also has a lot of potential for a lot of good. There's talk about AI being able to find cures for diseases and ailments. There's potential for AI to, solve infrastructure problems, solve housing issues, solve so many of the problems that we've had up till now. There's a lot of hope, and I have a lot of hope that AI can do a lot of the things we are hoping that it can do. And I would love to see it. I think it's completely possible, and I think if we, take steps to ensure that AI is not used for the wrong reasons, to ensure that it is used to benefit everyone, I think, it could go a long way. Comment I see, an opportunity I see in the field of healthcare is the reduction of bias in the treatments. In what treatments are recommended. Suppliers of expensive treatments presently have too much influence. Yes, I just saw something earlier that was talking about how there was a study done where if a doctor owned the MRI machine, they would prescribe an MRI more often than if they didn't own it, basically so that they would make more money off of it. And yeah, eliminating that type of bias would be fantastic. I've heard already that AI has gotten to a point where it is as good as, if not better than doctors at determining what ailments people have. And I don't remember the word for that right now, but it's gotten so good at taking in data and linking it to other things that it's gotten even better at simply finding out what's wrong with people. I have a lot of hope for it within the education system as well. I think if it is utilized properly, I think it could have a lot of impact in a positive way within our education. I do think there are a lot of hurdles to go over as well, but I think if we embrace the technology and use it where it works, don't use it where it doesn't work, we might have to really rethink how we approach the whole teaching process. But I think it can be done, and I think there's a lot of passionate people in that field that will do everything they can to make sure our education system is solid and strong. So if I don't have any other questions and comments, I'll probably wrap up. What I would love to leave you off with is if you could just try and be aware of where you see AI being used today. Are your friends and family using it on a personal level? Are you using it on a personal level? Do you see it used in the workspace, and how? Feel free to reach out if you see anything interesting. Like I said, I haven't experienced AI being used within my workspace, but I'm an electrician, so it would be a lot trickier to utilize it. So I'm very curious as to if anyone else has experienced that type of utilization of AI. If that's it, then I will wish you all a good night, and I'll see you on the next one. Thank you all for joining.